What gives?
A women's basketball player. She deserves it. She deserves.
You won't believe this. Nike has finally apologized to Caitlin Clark after months of staying silent. Yep, the same Caitlin Clark who's been breaking WNBA records and dominating on the court like no one else. And this apology came in the form of a huge ad plastered across the Indiana Fever Arena featuring none other than Caitlin herself. Sounds like a happy ending, right? Well, not so fast.
NBA, yes. Do I think if A'ja Wilson dropped a shoe and Caitlin Clark dropped a shoe today at the very same time, that Caitlin Clark would outsell A'ja's shoe by 100 times? Yes, I think that would be the case.
Before we get into the details, let's rewind a bit. Caitlin Clark, one of the brightest stars in basketball today, signed a massive 8-year, $28 million endorsement deal with Nike. That's right, $28 million. You'd think that Nike would be all over that, pushing her out there, making sure she's the face of their brand, right? But strangely enough, they've been quiet, too quiet.
Season has come and gone. And with that, Nike has not done one thing to promote her. We have not seen any commercials, we have not seen any ads, we have not seen any Caitlin Clark merchandise, and we for sure as hell have not seen any Caitlin Clark.
While Caitlin Clark was out there setting the WNBA on fire during her rookie season, what did Nike do? Practically nothing. No ads, no commercials, no new shoes. Nothing. It was like they forgot they signed one of the hottest names in basketball. Fans were starting to wonder, why was Nike ignoring their own star? This wasn't just a minor oversight either. It felt like Nike was ghosting Caitlin, despite all the hype around her. And then, out of nowhere, Adidas swoops in. Word on the street was that Adidas saw the missed opportunity and started showing serious interest in signing Caitlin. Rumors were flying about a $30 million deal on the table. Can you imagine? Nike, the biggest sports brand in the world, possibly losing one of the brightest basketball stars to their rival Adidas? Things were heating up. But what was really mind-blowing was the timing of all this. Caitlin was out there smashing records, becoming the first rookie to record a triple-double in WNBA history, and pulling in millions of viewers every time she hit the court. And still, nothing from Nike. No signature shoe, no high-profile campaigns, no acknowledgement. It was bizarre. Fans couldn't believe it. How could Nike, a company that's known for being on top of trends, be so slow to act? And this brings us to the apology. After months of silence, Nike suddenly remembered that they had a $28 million contract with Caitlin Clark. And how did they make up for lost time? By putting up a huge banner of her at the Indiana Fever Arena. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a big move. It's a public display of support, and it's hard to miss. But for a lot of fans, it felt too little, too late. So, what was the real reason behind this sudden change of heart? Well, if you ask me, it's got a lot to do with Adidas making moves. Once Adidas started sniffing around, Nike had no choice but to step up their game. They couldn't afford to lose Caitlin to a competitor, especially after signing such a huge deal with her. But is this really an apology, or just Nike scrambling to save face? That's the million-dollar question. Or should I say $28 million? From the outside looking in, it seems like Nike only started caring about Caitlin once Adidas showed interest. If that's the case, then this isn't much of an apology. It's damage control. And the thing is, Caitlin Clark deserves way more than just a banner. She's not just another basketball player. She's a phenomenon. Her rookie season wasn't just good, it was historic. She led all rookies in points, assists, steals, and minutes played. She became the first rookie in WNBA history to record a triple-double. Her games were drawing over 1 million viewers on average. That's not normal. That's once-in-a-generation talent. So why wasn't Nike promoting her like the superstar she is? Let's be real here. Nike knows how to market athletes. They've been doing it for decades. Look at LeBron James. When he entered the NBA, Nike was all over him. They had a signature shoe ready to go from day one. They pushed his name out there, and it paid off big time. So why not do the same for Caitlin? Well, some people think it's because Nike was focused on promoting other stars, like A'ja Wilson, who's already an established name in women's basketball. There's even talk that Nike didn't want to give Caitlin a signature shoe before Aja, out of fear of how it might look. But that doesn't really make sense, does it? Why can't they promote both? It's not like Nike doesn't have the resources. The weirdest part of all this is that Nike has been completely radio silent when it comes to Caitlin's signature shoe. It was supposed to be part of her $28 million deal, but we haven't seen any updates or release dates. Rumors are swirling that her signature shoe might not even drop until 2026. That's insane. 2026? That's like a lifetime in the world of sports. By then, who knows how many more records Caitlin will have broken? It just doesn't add up. And let's not forget the fans. Caitlin Clark's supporters have been vocal from the start, calling out Nike for dropping the ball on this one. Social media was buzzing with questions, and sports commentators were scratching their heads. Everyone was wondering why Nike wasn't doing more to push Caitlin to the forefront. It's not just about selling shoes, it's about capitalizing on a moment, and Nike seemed to have missed it. But then Adidas stepped in. They saw the potential, and they were ready to bet big on Caitlin. It wasn't just about the money, either. Adidas recognized what Caitlin brings to the table, not just as a player, but as a brand. She's a game changer, plain and simple. And Adidas wanted in on that. It's almost like they were watching Nike fumble the ball and thought, hey, let's grab this opportunity. So where does that leave us now? Well, Nike's banner is up, but is it enough to keep Caitlin from jumping ship? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, this whole situation has raised some serious questions about how big brands treat women's sports. Are they really invested, or are they just paying lip service when it suits them? This isn't just about one athlete and one brand. This is about a bigger issue in sports, the way female athletes are marketed and supported compared to their male counterparts. Caitlin Clark is a prime example of how much potential there is in women's sports, and Nike needs to wake up and realize that. If they don't, Adidas might just swoop in and take Caitlin and all that potential with them. So Nike finally put up that massive banner of Caitlin Clark at Indiana Fever Arena, which seems like a way to apologize after months of radio silence. But let's get into why this whole situation is a much bigger deal than just a banner or a shoe deal. We're talking about a huge shift in how companies like Nike and Adidas approach women's sports, and more importantly, how they might just be missing out on one of the biggest stars women's basketball has ever seen. Now, let's talk more about Adidas. While Nike was busy being silent, Adidas was doing the opposite. They weren't just sitting around. They saw an opportunity and went for it. Remember those rumors about Adidas offering Caitlin Clark a $30 million deal? Yeah, that was no small move. For Adidas, it wasn't just about outbidding Nike. It was about making a statement. They saw how much hype and attention Caitlin was bringing to the WNBA, and they wanted a piece of that action. Adidas has been known for jumping on big opportunities in sports, and Caitlin Clark was no different. They knew that she wasn't just another player. She was drawing millions of viewers, breaking records left and right, and her popularity was skyrocketing. And let's not forget, Adidas has had a history of pulling off big moves like this before. They weren't going to let Nike sit back and dominate the market without a fight. But here's the thing. While Adidas was gearing up to potentially steal Caitlin from Nike, something bigger was happening in the world of women's sports. Caitlin Clark wasn't just making headlines on her own. She was becoming a symbol of how women's sports can draw just as much attention, if not more, than men's. Her games were setting viewership records, her jersey sales were through the roof, and fans were rallying behind her in a way we haven't seen in a long time. That's why it's so mind-blowing that Nike wasn't capitalizing on this sooner. You have to ask yourself, what was Nike thinking? They've seen this kind of hype before with athletes like LeBron James, who had his signature shoe ready to go from the moment he stepped onto the court. But with Caitlin, they just didn't act. Was it internal politics? Were they waiting to push their already established stars, like Aja Wilson, before giving Caitlin her moment? It's hard to say for sure, but it's clear they missed a major opportunity. Fans didn't take this lightly either. Social media blew up with people asking why Caitlin Clark wasn't getting the attention she deserved. People were calling out Nike, questioning whether they were really invested in women's sports. After all, if Caitlin Clark can't get a commercial or a signature shoe after the kind of season she had, What does that say about how Nike views the WNBA and women's sports in general? That's where Adidas comes back into the picture. They saw the gap, and they wanted to fill it. By offering Caitlin a $30 million deal, they weren't just trying to outdo Nike. They were trying to show that they were serious about women's sports. They were ready to invest in Caitlin, not just because she's a great player, but because they knew the potential she had to elevate their brand. Adidas was playing the long game, and it looked like they might just win. Now let's talk about Caitlin's impact on the WNBA. Her games were pulling in over 1 million viewers on average, which is unheard of for the league. She wasn't just breaking records, she was bringing attention to women's basketball in a way that no one else had done before. Her performance in the WNBA playoffs, despite her team not making it all the way, was still a huge deal. The numbers speak for themselves. People wanted to watch Caitlin Clark play, and they were tuning in by the millions. That kind of star power doesn't come around often, and Nike should have seen it from the start. But instead, it took Adidas showing interest for them to finally step up. And even then, all we've gotten so far is a banner. Don't get me wrong, the banner is cool, but where's the Caitlin Clark signature shoe? Where are the commercials? Where's the big marketing push that you'd expect for someone who just had one of the best rookie seasons in WNBA history? It's not just about Caitlin either. This whole situation shines a light on how women's sports are treated compared to men's. If a male athlete had a season like Caitlin's, you can bet there would have been commercials, shoes, and marketing campaigns everywhere. But for some reason, Caitlin Clark, despite being one of the biggest names in basketball, was overlooked. The question we need to ask is, why? Is it because women's sports still don't get the same level of attention and respect as men's? Or is it because brands like Nike are still figuring out how to market female athletes on the same level as their male counterparts? Either way, it's clear that something needs to change. Caitlin Clark's story is a reminder that women's sports are on the rise, and brands that don't recognize that are going to get left behind. Adidas saw it, and they're ready to make a move. Nike, on the other hand, seems like they're playing catch-up. They've got one of the biggest names in women's basketball on their roster, but they've done almost nothing to promote her. It's frustrating, to say the least. So, where do we go from here? Will Caitlin stick with Nike, or will she take that $30 million deal with Adidas? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure. Nike needs to do more if they want to keep her. A banner isn't going to cut it. They need to show that they're fully behind Caitlin Clark and that they're ready to invest in her the way Adidas clearly is. And let's not forget about the fans. They've been vocal from the start, calling out Nike for not giving Caitlin the recognition she deserves. Social media has been buzzing with support for Caitlin, and it's clear that people want to see more of her. In commercials, in campaigns, and yes, in a signature shoe. At the end of the day, this whole situation has opened up a bigger conversation about how women's sports are marketed. Caitlin Clark is just one example, but there are plenty of other female athletes who aren't getting the attention they deserve. The hope is that brands like Nike will learn from this and start treating women's sports with the same respect and investment as they do men's. So, what's next for Caitlin Clark? Well, whether she sticks with Nike or jumps over to Adidas, one thing's for sure, her future is bright. She's already cemented herself as one of the biggest stars in basketball, and she's only getting started. Whoever ends up signing her is going to have a superstar on their hands, and the fans are going to be watching closely. And Nike, well, they better hope that banner isn't the last move they make because Caitlin Clark is too big of a star to be left in the background. So, what do you think? Is Nike's huge banner of Caitlin Clark an honest apology, or just a last-minute attempt to keep her from jumping to Adidas? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates on the latest sports stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.